In my world, numbers don't have emotions. They don't have bad days, they don't make excuses, and they never lie. My name is Craig Price, and for 15 years, I've worked as a senior mortgage underwriter in Charlotte, North Carolina. People think my job is boring, just looking at tax returns and bank statements all day. But a mortgage file is actually a biography written in decimals. I can look at a credit report and tell you if a person is impulsive, if they're desperate, or if they're hiding a second life that I spent my career spotting fraud for the bank. I just never expected to find a toxic asset sitting at my own dining room table. My wife, Allison, is an interior designer. She's all light, color, and instinct, the perfect opposite to my rigid, black and white world. For 14 years, I believed we were a balanced portfolio. But things started to shift last November. It started with a name, Todd Archer. Todd was a corporate wellness consultant hired by Allison's firm. According to her, he was a visionary. According to his LinkedIn, he was a man who moved from city to city every 2 years, leaving a trail of consulting firms in his wake. To an underwriter, that's not a career, that's a red flag. The first time I met him was at a local charity gala. Todd was everything I wasn't. He was tall, wore a $1,000 suit with no tie, and had that practiced, loud laugh that fills a room. When Allison introduced us, he barely looked at me. "Ah, the mortgage guy," Todd said, his hand lingering a second too long on Allison's shoulder. "Must be tough, Craig. Staring at spreadsheets while the rest of the world is out there taking risks. I guess someone has to play it safe." I saw the way Allison looked at him. It wasn't just admiration, it was a hungry kind of focus. She didn't defend me. She didn't even blink. She just smiled, her eyes reflecting the expensive chandeliers in the ballroom. "Safety is underrated, Todd," I replied, my voice as level as a balanced sheet. "People who take too many risks usually end up in my office asking for a bailout." He laughed, a sharp, condescending sound, and swept her away to the dance floor. I stood there, nursing a lukewarm drink, and I did what I'm trained to do. I began an audit that I didn't go through her phone. I didn't follow her in a car. I went to the one place where truth is recorded, our joint household accounts. In January, I noticed the first anomaly. A transfer of $800 to an entity called ELR Consulting LLC. Then another in February. Then a third. Allison told me it was a private career coaching service she was using to help with her partnership transition, but when I ran the LLC through the Delaware Business Registry, the registered agent wasn't a coach. It was a co-working space in Raleigh, the same one Todd Archer used as his headquarters. I sat in my home office at 2 a.m., the blue light of the monitor reflecting in my eyes. I wasn't angry. Anger is a variable that leads to mistakes. I was analytical. I pulled up the tax records for the Henderson project, the biggest contract Allison's firm had signed this year. I found that Todd hadn't just been consulting. He'd been overbilling. He was submitting invoices for materials that didn't exist and wellness seminars that were never held. And Allison was the one signing the checks. She wasn't just having an affair, she was his insider. She was funding his lifestyle with the firm's money and our personal savings. To her, it was a romance. To me, it was a high-risk default that I gave it 3 more weeks. I played the part of the boring accountant. I helped our son, Mason, with his baseball grip. I listened to our daughter, Zoe, talk about her art projects. I ate dinner with Allison and let her tell me about her long days at the office. The breaking point came when I found a hand-drawn card in Zoe's backpack. It was a picture of our family, but there was a new person in the drawing. A man with a cool car. Zoe told me Mom's friend Todd had given her a professional art kit and told her he was going to be helping us out more often. That was the moment the audit was finalized that I didn't confront her immediately. I spent Thursday night building a digital evidence vault. I compiled the bank transfers, the fraudulent invoices I'd cross-referenced, and the time-stamped photos Roy Bassett, my private investigator, had taken of them at a boutique hotel downtown. Then, I did something Todd Archer never saw coming. I didn't send the files to a lawyer. I sent them to the board of directors at Allison's firm and to the primary investors of Todd's new, wellness tech startup. On Friday evening, I sat at the kitchen island, waiting. Allison walked through the door at 6:30 p.m., looking radiant, still humming a song I didn't recognize. She set her bag down and started talking about a client she'd seen. That I looked up from my laptop. "Allison," I said, my voice flat and clinical. "Do you love him?" She froze. The grocery bag in her hand slipped, a carton of eggs cracking on the floor. "What?" "Craig, what are you talking about?" "Todd Archer," I said. "The man you've been funneling $2,400 of our children's college fund to. The man whose fraudulent invoices you've been approving at Studio West." Her face went from confusion to a ghostly, sickly white. She didn't deny it. She couldn't. The numbers were already on the table. "Craig, it's not what you think," she stammered, her voice trembling. "Todd he's a visionary. He's going to change things. I was just helping him get started." "You were helping him commit wire fraud, Allison," I replied. "And you were doing it while he was telling my daughter he'd be helping out with the family." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the sound of her rapid breathing. Then, her phone vibrated. Then again. And again. "That would be the board," I said, closing my laptop. "And probably Todd. I imagine he's just realized that his visionary career just hit a brick wall called the North Carolina Business Court. I sent them everything, Allison. Every single digit." She looked at me then, not with guilt, but with a terrifying realization. She had spent months thinking I was the one who didn't see her. She realized too late that I was the only one who saw everything. The silence in our kitchen after my revelation was absolute. Allison didn't move. She just watched her phone light up over and over again, a frantic strobe light of a life falling apart. Finally, she looked at me, her eyes filled with a desperate, flickering anger. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "You just destroyed the mother of your children. You just burned our house down to prove a point." "No," I said, sliding a manila folder across the granite counter. "I didn't burn it down. I just refused to sign the insurance waiver for the fire you started. These are the separation papers. You have 1 hour to pack a bag. The kids are at my mother's. They don't need to see the liquidation." She left that night, trailing the scent of expensive perfume and broken promises. I spent the next 48 hours doing what I do best, stabilizing the assets. I secured the accounts, changed the locks, and prepared for the inevitable arrival of the visionary. It happened on Sunday morning that I was in the driveway, loading Mason's baseball gear into the truck, when a black SUV pulled up to the curb. Todd Archer stepped out. He wasn't wearing the $1,000 suit anymore. He looked disheveled, his eyes bloodshot, the charismatic mask finally cracked. "Price," he shouted, walking toward me. "You have any idea what you've done? You sent internal firm documents to my investors. That's tortious interference. I'll sue you for every penny you've ever counted." I didn't stop loading the truck. I didn't even look up until the bag was zipped. Then, I turned to face him. "Actually, Todd, it's called whistleblowing when it involves a pattern of fraudulent billing across multiple corporate entities," I said. "I didn't just look at Allison's firm. I looked at your previous consulting gigs in Raleigh and Durham. You have a very specific signature. You overbill by exactly 14%, the threshold most mid-sized firms consider too low for a formal audit. You're not a visionary. You're a rounding error." Todd stepped into my space, trying to use his height to intimidate me. "Allison told me you were a coward. She told me you were a boring, small man who stayed in his lane because he was afraid of the real world." I smiled then. It wasn't a warm smile. "Allison told you what I wanted her to see. I'm a mortgage underwriter, Todd. My entire life is built on determining who is a liability and who is an asset. You were a liability the second you stepped into my house. And Allison? She's currently a non-performing loan. I've already written her off. She loves me," he spat. She loves the version of you she funded with my money, I countered. But now that the ZW advisory accounts are frozen and the North Carolina Business Court has opened an inquiry into your billing practices, I wonder how much of that visionary love is left. You don't have a startup anymore, Todd. You have a legal defense fund. And from what I've seen of your balance sheet, you can't afford it. He lunged forward, a desperate, clumsy move. I didn't have to do much. I stepped aside, and the local police cruiser I'd called 10 minutes earlier pulled around the corner. Todd froze. He realized too late that I don't take risks. I only take certainties. The officer didn't arrest him, not yet. He just told him to leave the property. Todd retreated to his SUV, looking small and defeated against the backdrop of the suburban dream he tried to hijack. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Because of the marital waste, the $19,000 of our savings she had funneled into Todd's fraud, my attorney, Bill Garrett, secured a 70-30 asset split in my favor. Primary custody of Mason and Zoe was granted to me after the court saw the forensic report on Todd's background. The last time I saw Allison was in the courthouse hallway. She looked older, the vibrant designer light in her eyes replaced by a dull, constant anxiety. She was working as a junior freelancer now. No firm in the city would touch her after the audit. I hope you're happy, Craig, she said, her voice hollow. You got your numbers to balance. Everything is back in its neat little rows. I adjusted my glasses and looked at the woman I had once loved without question. It's not about happiness, Allison. It's about the truth. In my world, if the numbers don't add up, the deal doesn't close. I walked out of that courthouse and drove to Mason's baseball game. I sat in the stands, opened my laptop, and started working on a new file. A simple, clean commercial loan for a local bakery. Life isn't a glossy magazine cover. It isn't a visionary's pitch deck. It's a series of small, honest transactions. And for the first time in 14 years, my books were finally, perfectly clear.